talk real quick to that about that.
Yeah. No, Trisha's like that too.
No, Calvin.
So apparently the guy.
My main job is
People, we are here to stay. So please grab some information. Find out what we all about. This is a piece of information.
We would like
to invite all of you to take our proposals and grievances to Mayor Bloomberg's home at 17 East 79th Street. We now have a song to help you learn his address. Ready? 1, 2, 3. Mayor Bloom Scrooge, you'll be sorry. 17 East 79th Street. Rockefeller will escort you. 17 East 79th Street. Down to hell with chains of fire. 17 East 79th Street. We'll just keep on occupying 17 East 79th Street. Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen.
So if we reoccupy the space, which the church is saying we can't, the state is saying we can't, and we do this, and I'm not against those things, but we need to be focusing on what is going to be the best thing for the movement to grow and expand and to start changing these policies. So is it just protesting and claiming this space or reclaiming this space and perhaps getting arrested and beaten in the process? Maybe that's a big media coup that we shows that we're trying to do this. But at the end of the day, what is the ultimate outcome we're trying to get to? Is that the best way to get there, or should we be focusing on making a more cohesive movement? Should we be getting to the point where our message is more readily understood in other places? And how do we do that? Is claiming this space today the best way to do that on the 3rd anniversary of this? The 2nd anniversary, we had maybe 100,000 people marching in Lower Manhattan. That was a truly newsworthy story that everybody saw. I don't know what's going to happen here today, but I think it's just a question worth asking. You have a direct response?
Yeah.
Who wants to go first? Speak up.
Yeah, so I mean, like, I think occupying space physically is like one way to do that. I don't know if it's the best way, but I think it should, like, it's one way that it's one thing that we should keep going. Because, I mean, I have friends like who aren't so involved in the Occupy movement, but who are interested in it, and I have friends who are supporters of the Occupy movement, but who are not like really involved in it. And I guess they're asking me right now, so whatever happened to Occupy? Like, they're not at Zuccotti, they don't have a physical public presence. So I think keeping a public space occupied physically is important to keep new people coming in, and to keep people who aren't so involved, I guess, to have them have one step in this, one foot in this.
Direct response up here and then down below.
Yeah, actually, I'm glad you went first. To answer your question, I think is exactly related to that, and that is, I'm concerned if we start moving into cohesion, it's great, because we got to do that at some point, but I'm wondering if we have enough people for us. Are we at the point where we've included enough people, where we've reached out to enough people, that we have enough differing points of views that we can listen to and come together and include everybody? So I guess in order to answer that question, I have to say, well, have we gotten to the point that we can stop worrying about public space and do the cohesion, because the public space is bringing in new people. That was like our greatest tool to bring in new people. And I mean, everyone who's been in the think tank before has seen that. You know, it would just bring in people wandering by. They had a term, occupied tourists. You know what I mean? So I think having the physical space is important for the outreach aspect.
One more direct response, and then we're going to move on with Stack. She has direct response here. You have direct response to this?
My direct response to that is that I think it is important that since we do have such a huge following now, that we can keep, we have to keep occupying public space, because there's always going to be more people. We're always going to have more people join the group. For the rest of history, there's always going to be someone else that we can reach out to and whatnot. And also, we have so many people in this group that we can allocate our resources to both do this and also structure our group throughout that. We can do that. We can multitask. We're at that point. We have technology also.
We need to move on with Stack. He had one first.
Yeah, I wanted to agree with you that we do need a space. I mean, this whole movement is about people who are invisible. So we need an open space that is visible. We don't need to be somewhere in the middle of the countryside. We need to be here, not necessarily in this space, but any space that is visible, because this is our message. We are protesting a system that is trying to make us invisible. So we need an open space in order to get together and for people to see that another world is indeed possible. So we are protesting these hierarchical structures, whether it's the church, whether it's the government. It's all about hierarchy and power that is concentrated into the hands of a few, that is shutting out everyone else. So about the church also, just to close, it's not about the church, it's about the power structure. Don't confuse the rank and file, the priests, with the top hierarchy. They are two different things, and they always have a struggle. The rank and file always siding with the people, and the power structures, the echelons of power, always try to shut the rank and file out, just like everywhere else.
We have to move on and Stack. If you can do it in 2 sentences, okay. Richard, you're up next on Stack.
Shut down by myself.
The bottom line is that everybody's been waiting, and we keep.
I'll go back to what I started out with. And the reason I left it alone for quite some time and visited again is because of this. What should be more public than City Hall? Where LA was on the steps of City Hall in Los Angeles. That's the people's house. If you can't meet and talk about the government on the people's house, it gives you an idea of what you're dealing with. If we can't meet anywhere in America, every Occupy that has been evicted was in some quote-unquote public space. And they soon found out that it wasn't so public after all. The reason they don't want us in a public space, what is more hypocritical, no matter what you're talking about hierarchical structure, what's more hypocritical than a church denying people a space to have a conversation about? That's hypocrisy. We have to call that for what it is. But it also shows us that the church itself is governed by the very same powers that has oppressed us. We thought they were free. We thought they were the 4th richest landowner in New York. But what we found out is that the bankers own them. That's right. Yeah. The people that we're fighting against own them. And so the reason we'll not have a public space is because we live in a police state, and the police state, the people who run the police state, don't want us to have these kind of conversations, because ultimately this is what they fear the most, is for us to have these kind of conversations. It's not the space, it's what's going on in there. Because you have spaces in Brooklyn where people right now, they're selling drugs. And they're not stopping drug sales. There's spaces where people are selling, women are prostituting themselves, where people are doing all kinds of things that are harmful to themselves and the state. But nobody's stopping that. But we just want to have a conversation in what's supposed to be a church space, but they're telling us no, because we live in a police state. And the more we say that we want to be free, we want to have these conversations, the more we'll find out what we're really up against.
Any direct responses?
Hello, Richard.
Over there.
I want to agree completely with what you said, and there's a reason all the occupations get broken up. It's because you can't ignore them. And the reason that they hate them so much is that you have poor people who are suffering in our system who can't be ignored anymore. Like, you walk around New York City and you step over homeless people without realizing it. That's how fucked up the system is. If you have an occupation, you can't ignore the fact that people are getting fucked over, and it's unfair, and people are miserable, and that's why it's so important, and that's why I think it's really the most important part of and the most effective tactic is a long-term occupation, because you see everyone. And just coming back here today, it was so great. I saw all these people I haven't seen. Everyone's happy, everyone's involved. It's amazing. It's way better than just going to a GA every week or 3 times a week or going to the spokes council. You don't have the energy of a permanent occupation. I think it's great, and I think we should really try and find a space.
I think as a direct response to that as well, you know, when we had Zuccotti Park down there was all the talk about, you know, the problems we had. There was arguments and fighting and all these kind of things. And it actually showed them what society really was. Like, we had a discussion, are we a microcosm of society in Zuccotti Park? And the general conclusion was yes. Yes, we are, because we have all the problems that we have in regular society, but the media was there actually reporting on them. Stack, no, right?
Do you want to get on stack direct?
Just to kind of go off that when he was talking about homeless people, a lot of the problems that that you would hear about people in the park. People wouldn't talk about the ideas, the reasons why they were there. When people wanted to complain about the park, they would talk about the kinds of people that were there, what they looked like, and that they were homeless. And the thing that struck me about that was that, yes, some of these people are homeless, but the only difference is that you can actually see them now, that they're in front of you, and this has all basically been said. To kind of go back to the public space, with this space and with today, which I think was something that has been touched upon, I think that the church has reached out to support us as much as they can, but what we're seeing is the reality that it is so rich and has so many interests that their hands are tied, that the people who want us to help us the most may not be allowed to tell us that they want to support us or to give us that support simply because their financial backing, it will threaten them. And
Thank you. Have a good one. I should take a picture.